let's get Frank Seravalli. I'll pick that up after because I realized I had more to say there.
I thought you were transitioning from Team Tank to Frank Seravalli there.
No.
Okay.
No. We'll talk about it after. Frank Seravalli of Daily Faceoff joining us. Frank, how are you doing?
I'm good. I mean, Team Tank, some people call me Frank the Tank. Like, I'm on board for whatever.
That's kind of the feeling Canucks fans have right now. I mean, with everything that's gone on, they feel like they're on board for whatever else at this point. But Frank's brought to you by the great folks there at Zephyr Epic. Tell you what, the Pokemon, the hockey cards, everything. I got my Pokemon cards right here. The good stuff over there, Zephyr Epic. Check them out. Promo code what? Hockey season?
Yeah, that's the promo code.
Thank you. I'm not a promo code guy, but hockey season, $50. What's the deal here? Free shipping?
Just ask Frank a question, man.
Frank.
What? Why? Wait, hold on. I got to ask you, why are you not a promo code guy? Like, it saves you money.
I don't know. I know I'm a promo code guy, but I'm a forget the promo codes. I'm a 15% here, 5% here, 25% on your first delivery here. I don't know what's going on with these things.
He's just Faber's he's got it just like that he's like, whatever, I don't need promo codes.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. I got it like that. Frank, listen, the weekend here that we just had in Vancouver was something for the ages for, I think, the hockey world and hockey news in general. It's been a long time here building up. Heard a really interesting comment this morning that I wanted to kind of bring up. Was like, Jason Bruss said this morning, and I know you join them in the mornings a lot. Said, like, this is probably the most news you've seen around the Vancouver Canucks since the 2011 Stanley Cup playoffs, right? Like, this consistent news cycle that Vancouver's produced. How did you see things ending here with Bruce Boudreau to kind of start? Like, what are your initial thoughts on how this whole thing was handled with, the media availability on Sunday? Just everything that happened this weekend. There's so much, I don't even know where to start and ask you. So just your initial thoughts from the outside looking in.
Yeah, I would say, like, for me, the biggest thing what was most jarring watching the press conference on Sunday was that I actually felt bad for Rick Tocchet. Like, here he is, this new guy. I know no one's ever trampling on the guy that was outgoing, and there's always a certain amount of deference and respect to any mid-season coaching change. But here he is, what's supposed to be sort of a, hey, I'm back in the game. This is exciting. I'm going to a new market. He's never coached in Canada before. And it's like this awesome moment that he spends the first 5 questions or so of the press conference essentially ducking for cover because the Vancouver Canucks are just getting absolutely pelted. And rightfully so. I mean, the way that this was handled, I would just say the biggest thing, a lot of people would say embarrassing. I would say unnecessary. It didn't need to play out this way. There's a lot of factors that I think went into it. There probably are a number of people in the Vancouver Canucks front office today that are cursing Bruce Boudreau, saying like, oh, what a drama queen. Can't believe that this, he played it up so much and things like that. I would say the other part of it is like, look, there's only one way to treat people, and it's the right way. And I think this has been a stain on the Canucks, and it's going to be a stain on Jim Rutherford's legacy when it's all said and done. This 3-time Stanley Cup winning general manager, president of hockey ops now in Vancouver, I think he's universally respected. I've known Jim for a long time and someone that I would say is a true pro to deal with. But you know what? Like, there's other factors in play that I think complicate this that have made it extraordinarily difficult, and it didn't need to be this way.
And we spent a whole episode yesterday, did an emergency podcast to talk about this right after the firing, I guess, up to this point you call it. The thing is, like, and we're seeing it in our chat, nobody wants us to spend more time on this because we just spent time on this for the last 2 months, right? Like, that's a crazy thing. So I do want to turn the page here. Rick Tocchet comes in here. We talked about, obviously, the press conference that he had, but what are the Canucks getting with this coach? Maybe that's different from Bruce Boudreau.
Well, that's different. I think he just has a different air about him, a different personality. Bruce is sort of a happy-go-lucky, funny, irreverent, really fun guy to be around. And I'd say Tocchet is direct. He is genuine. He's honest. He's a straight shooter. He's to the point. I've known Rick Tocchet when I first started my career a couple years in when he was between jobs. He did TV in Philadelphia that I did with him for a while, and getting to know him, he's he's someone that I think players really like and trust because you always know where you stand. It's an open door. He's going to look you right in the eye and tell you exactly how he feels. And he's someone that, with his success, both as a player, not just the fight totals, but also the points and the games played, the Stanley Cup, the Stanley Cups as an assistant coach, his resume certainly demands respect. And he's got a real structured way of doing things. Like, nothing is on accident. He spends a lot of time thinking about practice plans and systems, and he talks to a lot of people around the league, what works and what doesn't work. And so he's always thinking about hockey, always talking about hockey, and he's always engaged. And so, you might be getting a text from him at 10 or 11 o'clock at night, thinking about some kind of, system or setup. Like, that's how he operates. And what was lacking, at least from the Vancouver management perspective, was Patrick Allvin and Jim Rutherford got there last year, having inherited Bruce Boudreau, and they were like, what is this? What are we seeing here? This practice is garbage. This game is unstructured. The way this team plays doesn't work for us. So that has been a thorn in their side for a really long time. And they've wanted to make a change. And until recently, they didn't have a green light to do so. And I think that's a really important thing to point out. I'm not absolving anyone here with this mess. Everyone's going to wear it, and the organization has a black eye from it. But I think just like in anything in life, it starts at the top. And for me, when you have a general manager and a president of hockey ops that quite clearly for a long time have wanted to make a change and haven't been able to, I think that's where you start to see a lot of this unravel.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess the question a lot of people have, and you just talked about kind of the differences between Boudreau and Tocchet. How many similarities do you think we're going to see with the late stage Travis Green teams that the Canucks were running here, with defensive systems that maybe couldn't score as much? How many similarities do you think there is between Travis Green and Rick Tocchet?
Hard to say. I mean, I'm trying to I do have the Travis Green teams in my mind. I also am trying to think of the last ones I saw from Tocchet in Arizona. Maybe some similarities, but it's a difficult question to answer because it's mostly different personnel. There's a couple pieces from Arizona that are obviously in Vancouver now, and not just Ekman Larsson, but also Luke Schenn. But it's definitely detail oriented is what I would say.
And the thought process, and again, like, put the PR aside, put how bad the situation ended up turning out, all that, put it aside. The thought process of bringing in a coach midseason. Do you like the thought process and just the hiring in general for the Canucks to make this change?
I would say to remove where this team is at in its competitive cycle, in a general sense, yes, I do like it. And I point to the Calgary Flames a few years back when Daryl Sutter took over mid-season. Kind of a lost year. They thought that they should be more competitive. They make the coaching change late in the year. It was much later than this, I think. And you're like, well, why do that? And they were able to get assimilated and find out what Daryl Sutter was looking for. And then they hit the ground running the next season and went on to win the Pacific Division. However, I would say in this case, I don't know how much sense it makes. For one, this is, if you're on Team Tank, and we just talked about this, you don't want to be piling up more wins than you should and be inching closer to 20th place instead of 32nd. You're not making the playoffs most likely regardless, especially not with some of the teams like Colorado really beginning to rev it up. And so that, I think, further damages you in the now. When it comes to next season, I would say the coaching change is mostly beneficial, but probably not in this case because so few of the players that are here right now will also be there then. What's the number we're talking about? 60%, 50% of the same players? In a perfect world for the Canucks, whether it's through trade or buyout or whatever it may be, they don't want a lot of the same group back to gain cap flexibility. So I guess what I'm saying here is I think Rick Tocchet is a great hire. I just don't really understand, and it brings me back to the unnecessary word. I don't understand why this needed to happen. Like, you could have, in a perfect world, just got through the rest of the year with Bruce Boudreau, and even from an ownership pocketbook perspective, just paid Bruce Boudreau, then Travis Green will be off the books. Then you can move forward next season with Rick Tocchet if you want to. I don't know, just my thoughts. Maybe there's something else in play that I don't know about, which I think you always have to allow for.
Frank, last week when Jim Rutherford had his press conference about Tanner Pearson, it evolved into a state of the franchise, really, obviously. Spent a lot of time in that situation. He mentioned there when Thomas Durant asked him a question that, when he gave him a 3-year timeline, he said, oh, it's going to be quicker than that. And then at this one that we talked yesterday, we've heard again multiple times. We've heard this all season. This isn't a quick fix here in Vancouver. In my eyes, and we just talked about this off the top of the show, a quick fix is 1 to 2 years. So what does this team need to do to have a successful retool? Or do you think that's impossible and this needs to be a straight up rebuild? Maybe you can keep Pettersson and Hughes still at this point in the rebuild, but like, how does this team have success in a rebuild or a retool? Sorry.
Well, what it involves, and I think I haven't listened like super closely, but I've heard clips from Thomas Drance and others who have sort of picked through this theory, is that it basically involves you winning 100% of your trades. That's really what it comes down to, is that there can't be any misses. And it's much different, I think, in a rebuild, because you know that you're not going to hit on all your draft picks, and you're kind of going in with that thought process of like, let's assemble as many as we can so that the ones that don't pan out don't absolutely cripple us. And to do it in this case, let's just pick a random destination. And like, I was going through this today with Bo Horvat, and there seemed to be some further reporting that, hey, maybe Bo Horvat likes what it's like under Rick Tocchet and decides to reconsider. And maybe that's possible, but I don't see the Canucks, based on Jim Rutherford's comments, substantially changing the offer that they made. And frankly, I don't even know why it would make sense. Although I certainly think that having Horvat back makes more sense over Kuzmenko from the long-term perspective. But when it comes to doing this correctly, you need to look at teams that are going to give, it's a totally different way of how teams have traditionally done this, selling off pieces, which is almost every team that you're trading with is keeping all of the good, really good prospects and NHL ready players that they have in their system. So like, let's throw Carolina out there and work through the exercise from the Bo Horvat perspective. Like, they're not trading you Netchash. They're not trading you Seth Jarvis. So you're looking at Kotkaniemi, probably, who has a long-term deal, 8 years and almost $5 million, and is on pace for 30 goals as a center. Some may view him as a reclamation project worth taking on. I don't know. But then you're looking at prospects who are not NHL ready, that are way further down the depth chart, that are like second-round picks and high third-round picks that you're hoping to then convert to your team. And all I'm saying is, if you're going through the retool process, you're getting let's just hypothetically, instead of draft picks, 3 players back for Bo Horvat. You got to go 3 for 3. Like, there cannot be any hiccups here in the process. And so I just think it's possible, but it allows for a lot less room for error.
Exactly. It's much more risk involved with these guys because, listen, the players that you're getting maybe at the 22 to 24 age range probably haven't worked out with the other team. So it's like, instead of getting 2 shots and drafting a guy, of having 2 shots of him working out, or maybe you flip him at 22 to a team that does want to do one of these retools, you're missing out on that strike. You're going up to the plate with 2 strikes against you at that point. And that was something that I questioned yesterday to Patrick Alvin, was the process. I said, that's what I think a lot of Canucks fans have the problem with, whether it be the last, you can look at the last 10 years since they were, President's Cup, when they won the President's Trophy back in 2012. You can look at the process that's gotten you to this point of, this is a team that we can turn around quickly with Jim Benning. Now you're kind of hearing a lot of similar things. The question that I had to Patrick Alvin is one I want to ask you. Should the Canucks trust this management group with their process of getting them back to being a contending team?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why it would be any different with this one than with any other one that you're going to hire. Like they have, Patrick Allvin has made his bones as a scouting director. Like he's someone that has an eye for talent evaluation. Jim Rutherford has made his bones on the art of the deal and pulling off transactions. And so you would think that the two of those guys married together, along with a solid staff, would be able to make some headway in that. I don't think it's a question of, is this the right management staff? I think it's a question of, is this the right direction? It's not necessarily the people in place, it's the orders that they're given to then march to. And so if you have, again, this is my belief, that it's coming from ownership, that you need to be competitive every year and you need to do whatever you can to get into the playoffs or whatever it may be, it drives your entire philosophy. And so what you end up having is basically the final year of the Jim Benning era. He makes those trades where they kick the can down the road and are now saddled with all of this, they trade a bunch of bad contracts where they could survive one more year and finally get the freedom, to then now being in this hell all over again because they're trying to paper over it. It was like, instead of punting on 1 year, you've now punted on 3 or 4. And so it's backed everything up at a time when that to me is like the most critical issue from the Canucks over the last decade. That's where this totally fell off the rails, is that you've now really crushed and wasted 3 to 4 years of Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes and Thatcher Demko in net, because you've had this mandate to be better in the short term as opposed to the long term. And it's really put this team further back, that whether it was Benning or whether it's now Rutherford and Allvin, it doesn't really matter to me who's driving the bus, because if someone has some strings tied to the top of the bus and can pick it up and put it on a different road, well, then that doesn't really matter who's behind the wheel.
Yeah, it's brand new cabinets on a house that has no structure. That's what's been unfortunate. I got to get some rapid fire ones in here for you, Frank, before we let you go. I want to say over under. Do the Canucks get more or less in a trade for Andrei Kuzmenko than a second round pick and a B-level prospect? Is the return higher or lower than that?
I am going to say the same. How about that?
I didn't give you that option, Frank.
Yeah, but I don't think it's going to be more than that. I also don't think it's going to be much less.
All right, fair enough. Bo Horvat, sounds like things are heating up. Obviously, there wasn't a great comment about it when asked from Patrick Allvin on the situation. Do you think this is the first one that gets done of potentially Luke Schenn, Kuzmenko, Horvat? Those are the 3 kind of big trade chips in Vancouver. Is it Horvat getting done first here, this market?
I think it makes sense to handle that one first. I try and understand how imminent it is, and I don't think very. Obviously, it's heated up in a big way, and the number of teams that have been involved has grown, and I think everyone has an understanding and a real base level knowledge of which teams are in and which teams are out. But it doesn't feel like it's like this is happening tomorrow, if that makes any sense.
Fair enough. Final question. Alex, I'm going to need you to pull up the photo of the taco from Montana's. Is this taco ridiculously large, Frank? We've been arguing about this. I swear this is the meatiest taco I might have ever seen in my life. Alex, can you pull up this Montana's taco on the Tuesdays there? I think there's too much meat in here almost.
I've never met a taco where there's not enough meat. Here's the thing, Faber. I've seen enough tacos where there's too little meat. And that would concern me, because I think one of the real joys of eating a taco is getting to mop up everything after the fact and really like enjoy it with a fork. And so I don't know. That's not an issue for me. I'm way more into the half price wings on Monday, though.
I tell you, I was ready to blast him when I heard $5 for a taco until I saw the size of this damn thing and comparing it to the slice of a lime. Anyways,
it is $5 Canadian as well. So this is
absolutely. You know what, Frank? I think you have better things to do. Maybe we'll let you go.
Enjoy the half price wing night, guys.
Will do. Appreciate it, Frank. We'll chat with you soon. Have a good one.